All right, this is where it starts to get complicated in the audio space. Custom install, distributed audio, things like that. This is probably the only video in the world that exists on these freaking amazing speakers, Dynaudio's version of an in-wall speaker. This is a good reason why I chose to pursue them and to become a dealer for them. So if you're here, you're not a normal garage guy or obsessed garage follower, and you're here because there are no other videos that exist on these speakers. A little background, I designed and sold home theater in my early 20s. I have an electrical engineering background, and it was always my dream someday to get back into home theater as a business at some point. I left my home theater gig when I was 25 and went to Merrill Lynch, and then spent 15 years in finance, and I've come full circle in that I now have a business where we teach people about garages, flooring, lighting, cabinets, tools, detailing stuff, buckets, air hose reels. What I like to do is I like to adapt professional grade stuff for my home use as a wannabe professional. I just want good stuff, and usually the best stuff is professional grade. In the world of audio, it's a little different in that there's an insane amount of choice, and I don't know if these are the best in-ceiling speakers in the world, but they're pretty darn good, and they're going to be up there in comparison to most that are available. So where I'm hoping to provide the world value is by showing you why these speakers make sense over time. I don't know that this video will solidify that, but over time show you how these speakers could make sense for your garage or your house or your patio or wherever you may need some in-wall or in-ceiling speakers that aren't exposed, that you can paint over the grill and make them essentially disappear. But for the purposes of this, and what we sell these mostly for, this we're going to talk about garages and why it makes sense. So Dynaudio, the reason why I was so excited about them, I never had the opportunity to sell them when I was in home theater sales, but I was always in love with them. I couldn't afford them, and when I was in my early 20s, but the reason why I like them, I prefer a sound signature that's smooth. It just depends on how you hear things. I don't like bright. I'm very sensitive to high frequencies, and all of these speakers have some version of a signature Dynaudio smoothness characteristic, and that's generally because they all have a soft dome tweeter. And so if you think about it, just look at my garage here. I've got stainless steel countertops. I've got metal cabinets. I got a metal backsplash thing here. I got metal above here. We've got plastic floor on top of concrete. I've got my car, which is all metal and fiberglass. I've got my lift, and then it just goes into more metal and more bright stuff. So it's a rather harsh place to listen to music. But I listen to music most in my car and second most in my garage. And so although I'm not doing a lot of critical listening in those environments, it is the place that I'm listening to music. And so if you think about smooth speaker and bright space or bright room, you have a pretty decent combination. So these are going to do best in a harsh environment, combined with the fact that even in a proper acoustically treated environment, I'm still choosing the sound of a Dynaudio speaker. So for those of us who tend to prefer bright sounds like horn-loaded or titanium dome or beryllium dome speakers, I think you're really going to like these, especially in your garage, because of how bright the garage can tend to be. So I'm going to take you through the line. This is going to get a little cumbersome. Again, I don't think that there are any videos on this stuff anywhere, even from Dynaudio. So this is where I think I can help and provide some value. I'm actually much more excited about these after seeing them and hearing them than I was because I don't really think of Dynaudio as a architectural speaker, an in-wall speaker, in-ceiling speaker. I think of them as a big, giant cherry wood box or oak box with some soft dome tweeters and woofers in them. And I also think of them for, you know, high-end studio monitors and things like that. So I generally don't think of them for this, but having had them in my ceiling in my house and having seen these and unboxed these all in person, they're freaking incredible. And there's a few key things that they do differently than pretty much anybody else I've seen. I don't know if they've invented this idea on how their brackets work, but certainly the first time I've seen it, and it works really, really well. So let's start with the P series, the performance line. And these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 speakers are all essentially the same thing, just a different configuration. So they all have the same tweeter, they have the same woofers, it just depends on the size and the number of drivers. So let's start with the P4W65, which is here. I've already unboxed it. It comes in this kind of brown box here, you know, so nothing super exciting. The only time I think you choose these over the Studio series, which we'll get into in a minute, is if you have space constraints, which almost every wall, unless you have 2x6 or greater construction, you're going to have similar space constraints. So I've immersed myself in the whole line, especially the performance series, because I think this will be the most practical. This speaker, if you're wondering, is $400, $399 each. So these are on a different level. These are a different class of in-wall, in-ceiling speakers. And that's because of the drivers. The drivers they're using are of Dynaudio's signature. So these are their MSP, which is a polycarbonate that they use in pretty much all of their drivers. Notice the similarity between their LYD, the core, and you'll see similar drivers in their $45,000 pair of Confidence or Contour or Evoke lines of speakers, a special 40, their bookshelf stuff. So your tweeter, woofer are generally going to be of the same sound signature. They're going to sound very similar. It's just that as you go up in price, you generally go up in quality of a better magnet. They'll employ some different technology or some different materials for their spider and their cooling. These are a copper voice coil, whereas I think the Studio uses an aluminum voice coil, uses aluminum inside, which is a little lighter weight. And so the main purpose for these speakers is depth. So this will fit in normal 2x4 construction or even slightly less. These are also capable of being used with a firebox. So whether you know it or not, a lot of different states, depending on the code where you're at, I don't think Florida we need this, but code commercially, which a lot of you that have these big garages may end up having, commercial. You'll have commercial codes if you have a garage that's somewhere outside of your house or outside of a residential neighborhood, and so you would pre-install or mount the firebox, and then you'd cut the drywall around and you'd mount the P-Series stuff. So all the P-Series stuff fits in the firebox, but the Studio Series does not. You'd have to build a box for it if you're going to use it commercially. So this is where I think the performance becomes more useful. Shallow installation, or you need fireboxes and fire-rated installation. So P-Series, again, you're going to buy if you're looking to hit a certain price point and if you need shallow depth. These have traditional screw-on type fittings. You'll notice the driver, the woofer is a little bit different than what I'll show you in the Studio Series. Same thing with the crossover. But the key is you get the same dudes that are making 50, 60, 80, $100,000 pairs of speakers. That same guys are making this stuff. And they're not making it to a price point, as you can tell, at $800 a pair. They're making it to what it needs to be to fit a particular enclosure. You have your frequency offset. You can sort of go plus or minus 3 decibels on your upper frequency response, your tweeter response. These, despite the literature being somewhat confusing depending on where you read on the Dynaudio site, these are a 25 millimeter, just under an inch tweeter, and then the number of the W65 implies that it's a 6.5 inch woofer. SAE size. And so all grills are magnetic. So I still have the plastic on here, but it has an insert here that you'd want to pull out. So this is to protect it from paint, but you simply take and magnetically attach. So you'd mount to the drywall, you'd screw in place. Your yellow clamps would come and clamp down on the drywall, and then you would put your magnetic grill over the top. Each one comes with a template inside. If you've never done in-wall or in-ceiling speakers, they give you a template which you can pop out. They give you a couple of different versions of it depending on what you needed. But the template allows you to cut, exact dimensions, or they also give you, in both metric and SAE sizes if you needed to measure it off walls in order to get it square or flush. So traditionally, rectangle speakers are designed for in-wall and circle speakers are designed for in-ceiling. These could be used in ceiling as well if you wanted to. And you generally want to stay somewhere between 10 and 17 feet, they recommend, if you're looking for any kind of stereo imaging or stereo pairs. So that's the W65. And then you have the W80, which is just same exact enclosure, same exact speaker, just bigger with a 8-inch woofer. So the frequency response is a little better. You pick up, I believe the W65 will publish all the specs on the website. They play down to like 47 hertz, and these play down to 42 hertz. So you get a little bit lower frequency response and some more output. And you can see the woofer and the configuration and the kind of very simple Dynaudio crossover design. And if you look closely in here, you could see copper leads and a copper voice coil winding. And the Spider is not their highest end version of a driver, but they're doing that to stay compact. You're going to get similar sound output, just not of the same high-end ilk as the Studio Series. So then you also have the option, if you were doing pre-construction, again, assuming you didn't need a firebox, but if you were doing pre-construction, we can sell you these. I think these are $30 a piece, but you would mount this bracket in ceiling, and your contractor is generally going to know how to do that properly. So this would be, your drywallers would cut around it, and then you can take your speaker and it would mount in place like so for a nice clean install, rather than you cutting in the speaker after the fact. So if you're building a garage or designing it, you'd want to buy a bunch of these for all the locations that we're going to do speakers, so that way we can make it for an easier install after the fact. And they make these in all 4 sizes, in both in ceiling and in wall. So these are available as well. I think they're $30 a piece, something like that. In true Dynaudio fashion, always a little bit more money. And then you have another interesting speaker, which I don't think we'll do a lot of these in garages, but if you wanted to hide all your home theater stuff and you wanted to do a left, center, right, this is what's called the P4 LCR50. And so you have 2 5-inch woofers and a single 25mm tweeter, same frequency adjustment here, depending on how bright the room is, same screw-in type clamps, and you'll notice you have a couple of woofers. So think about this logically. You'd put this as the center, and then you could go left and right. So left, center, right, all timber match, all the same type of speaker. So that is one way to set up. You could technically use these as a stereo pair, but if we're going to go stereo, I would do the W80s instead of this. So this, if we're selling you these for your living room or something like that, this is an incredible speaker for just mounting in wall. And notice these woofers are different than the other woofers, so they're a slightly different design. What they don't publish, and I'm going to figure this out when I get the engineers in front of me someday, but they don't tell us what actual woofer. Is it an Isotar woofer? Is it an Isotech? What are they calling? Have they branded the woofer? They have so many different woofers. They have woofers in the music line. They have woofers in the Evoke are different than the Contour. So they're not publishing the difference of woofer here versus woofer in the studio. But I'll show you in a second. There's clearly a different driver of different quality as you work your way up the line. So $399, $499 for the 8-inch, $499 for the LCR. You would want 3 of these, so it'd be $1,500 for the trio. And then you would do, if you were doing a 5-channel or 7-channel surround, maybe you're doing some speakers in the ceiling. For most of our garage applications, if you had a really big garage, we may have 10 pairs of these. We're powered with some audio control stuff. I'm working to get audio control so that we can do distributed audio systems in these giant, I mean, Kyle's often designing 2, 3, 4, 5, 10,000, 20,000 square foot garages, and we want to be able to provide an audio solution because it fits into the mix of the garage. So then you have 3 different size or 3 different versions of a in-ceiling performance series. Now these are a little bit different. You have the same magnetic type grill. This is, I think, genius in that it's a little easier to do a screw-in clamp on an in-wall speaker, but on an in-ceiling when you're overhead, they've taken that away from you. They've taken that risk out of your hands. And so the way that these work, it's a little bit different design, is that you go and you mount the bracket in-ceiling first. So there's a template in the box. You cut the hole using a router or a jigsaw or just a drywall knife, and then these clamp down by hand. So you reach up into the hole and you clamp down like so. We're going to show you that at my house how this works, but this is a genius design. It makes it so much easier to install the speaker, and then all you do is you take, once this is up in the ceiling, you take your driver, make sure you don't stick your finger through the tweeter or the woofer. You take your speaker, you line it up, and then it snaps, it twists in place like so. And then that's how the speaker's designed to be installed, combined with the magnetic grill, which will flush up when you don't have the baggie on it, which will flush up perfectly. I've got, I don't know, $8,000 worth of speakers here, so I'm hoping to put these back in a box and sell them to somebody because most of these are brand new right out of the box. Same 25mm tweeter. These are pivotable as well. I don't think, that's a good question, the in-walls do not pivot. No pivoting on the in-walls, which would make sense. But in ceiling, you can pivot back toward the listening position. If you're using this as a surround or something like that, you may want to do that. But you do get some pivot function here on the tweeter driver, and then it will center back up. Same thing here, where you have what appears to be coppered voice coil entry-level version. These don't look entry-level, but the same MSP type material that all the Dynaudio speakers have. So you have the P4C65, which is 6.5-inch woofer, 25mm tweeter, so 1-inch tweeter we'll call it. And then you have a dual voice coil version. So think about you were putting this in the shower, your garage shower, or you just want to do one speaker somewhere. It has dual tweeters. This does not pivot. Yeah, it does not pivot. And then I believe on the crossover, it's not on the front here, so you have your normal frequency response adjustment. This can be used as a dipole in a surround environment. I don't know if there was a jumper that you needed to change from R4 to R5. But in the instructions, it tells you how to set it up as a dipole if you're going to use it as a surround speaker. Same exact everything as the C65, P4C65, which is in the dual voice coil version, and you're paying $50 more for that. So this is $450. Rather costly, rather expensive, but extremely nice speakers. And then you have the 8-inch version here, same design, same setup, just with a bigger 8-inch woofer can see the voice coil windings quite a bit more robust in order to handle the bigger woofer. These are, a sensitivity, just to give you a frame of reference, Klipsch is a really popular speaker line. Their sensitivity is somewhere usually around 98 dB, meaning that they can run off of a really lean amplifier and work very efficiently. These have a efficiency somewhere between 87 and 90 dB. So you're gonna want a decent amplifier to power something like these. Like, you're not gonna want a $200 receiver. You're gonna want, to be $1,000, $2,000 drive or some sort of amplifier, supplemental amplification in order to drive these really well. Even though these are technically Dynaudio's entry level, these are by far not entry level speakers. I couldn't be more pumped about these. They're just incredible. I wasn't even sure I was gonna worry about offering, in-wall in ceilings and just do them, custom order, special order, but I'm gonna stock these and have them available for everybody. Seeing the quality of the firebox, just really, really incredible stuff. So let's talk studio line. And let me pull one of these over here. I purposely left this one in the box. This is when we're getting into, real deal, high-end, in-ceiling, in-wall mounted applications. So I actually have in my home theater at my house right now, I have 2 pairs of S4C 80s, the 8-inch version of this. Now these will not fit in a normal, 2x4 constructed. Usually floors are going to be 2x6. Even then, it's not going to fit. I have open attic above it, so that's how this works. You would need to plan ahead for something like this. But look at how you rarely see. There's only a few manufacturers that make, in-ceiling speakers that show up in a box like this, where you have just the quality of how they put it together and how it shows up. This stuff, there's no extra fluff. Like, there's a purpose, there's a reason why this box is built this way. They're not doing it to really show off. I think it's just functionally excellent. And so these all have a bracket. So you have your separate in-wall bracket. I guess you could call this, it's not even a bracket, it's the enclosure for the speaker. And so again, you would use your thumb, so you'd reach up in here, you'd turn this outward after you cut your drywall hole, and then you'd clamp down, and that's how the speaker would mount to the ceiling. And look at this sucker. So this is what I was confused, and this is what I want to clarify with Dynaudio. What woofer is in this speaker? And the first thing I noticed in reading all the documentation is that there are aluminum leads. And so I believe these are aluminum voice coil, which is part of what Dynaudio does in their higher end speakers because it's lighter weight, and that makes the driver a little more efficient and moves a little quicker. The cone looks a little bit different. The tweeter on these also is different. This is a 28 millimeter tweeter, so I think it's pretty clear to me that the tweeter is a different type. And the mounting system is different as well with these locking turn knobs. But you do have some adjustability on both the C65 and the C80. The C80 is just bigger, 6.5-inch woofer. But you can see even the basket of the woofer is different. The crossover is different. So the Studio series is built without compromise, meaning that they didn't build it to make sure that it could fit in everybody's house. They just built it to what it needed to be built to. And then it looks more like a speaker when you put it together. And then you, of course, would angle it back toward the listening position. And so once you mount your bracket, you snap your speaker in. It'll click once you have it up in the wall. It'll click in place. I don't know if it'll make that audible click here. And then you turn your locks to lock it. See if I did it right. Yeah, see, now it needs to click in place. So make sure you get that click, otherwise it'll drop on your head like I did. So, or it'll vibrate. So now it looks more like a traditional speaker. These come with a magnetic grille, just like the other. They come with a paint shield, so if you're going to paint, you would want to put the paint shield over the speaker. Paint the grill off of the speaker. But you have a same thing where you have the the metal magnetic grill. So this is also a paint shield as well. If you were going to paint, these are paintable grills. And so you would have your speaker set in the ceiling, and then you get nice, clean, magnetic. These won't vibrate. Really pretty ingenious design. I'm sure there's some other speakers that have this, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. But the design of this, where I'm not trying to drill up over my head and slip and put my drill through the speaker, that would be a really sad day. These are $650 a piece. The 8-inch, I believe, is $750 a piece. We'll have all the pricing on obsessedgarage.com with photos and videos and all the stuff that you'll need to make an educated buying decision. So that's the S65, S4C65, the 6.5-inch version. Back in the box, here's your template for cutout, your cutout template. I thought that was pretty cool how they come set up like this. So as we work down the line here, you have the sort of same idea where just like the P4 series, the S4 series has a 6.5-inch version. Now these don't have the screw points. These have it where the bracket comes, or the speaker comes out of the bracket. So the speaker, so the bracket, you'd mount the bracket and then install the speaker after the fact. This gives you a little better view of the woofer difference. So let me show you the S4 versus the P. So you can see the magnet as the traditional Dynaudio basket. Looks more like an Esotec woofer. Has a different spider, has a different voice coil, has different more robust crossover, and then of course has a little different sound. Now, non-pivoting tweeter, but 28mm tweeter, so bigger tweeter as well. And you can see that the voice coil, or not the voice coil, the cone has a different dust cover as well. Pretty freaking awesome. Again, I wasn't super enthused because of what these things cost, but after I've heard them and seen them in person, it's really incredible. I mean, we could do a pair of these in your garage and it'll rip your face off. It'd be freaking great. But this is a gentleman speaker. This is not I mean, you're listening to male, female vocalists, you're listening to rock. If you're looking for just rip your face off, rap, or EDM or something like that, these probably aren't the right speakers for you. This is a gentleman's game here that we're getting into with these speakers. Then you have the bigger version. Look at this sucker. So that's the 8-inch version. So that was $750. This one's $1,000 each, not a pair, each. But you can see, I think you can see why. $1,000 a piece. But imagine you had a pair of those in your really harsh garage environment, it'd be sick. I mean, I'm not only selling for garage, you want it for your home, just buy them, I'll help you figure out what you need to figure out. We can help you figure out whatever you need. Same thing here, dipole, bipolar, or dipole only, or just dual voice coil. Okay, so this is what I was reading. There's a switch to switch between normal operation and dipole operation. So these will work well as a surround speaker. I'm not using these. I'm using the 8-inch version as my rear surround speaker, but these do have a pivotable, you can pivot the tweeter direction. Again, high frequencies are very directional, low frequencies are sort of non-directional, or very close to non-directional, but the dual voice coil version is $700. And then you have another interesting thing. This took me a while to figure out, because the boxes aren't the same pretty white boxes. I'm like, what the heck is the S4 LCR? So, you'll want to go in and read the brochure on these, or just hit me up and I'll help you figure this out. But if you remember, we talked about this, the P4 LCR, you would just buy 3 of these. Well, this is a much bigger speaker and wouldn't fit within a 16-inch stud if you had this combination stuck together. Put this aside here. So this is the woofer. This is the S4 LCR 65W, so dual 6.5-inch woofers. And then this is the S4 LCR MT, mid-tweeter. And so these will snap together. But if you have normal construction, this won't fit. And so what you do is you would put the mid-tweeter in between the studs, and then you would put the woofers in between the second set of 16-inch on-center studs or 24-inch on-center studs, and you could set it up as a true LCR setup. So if you think about, let's say this is our TV right here, I could do center channel, so mid-tweeter, woofer, woofer, and then that's my center channel. I could do just that if I wanted to just do a single center channel operation. Another option is I could go, so center channel, and I could do left and right. And so I could configure these like so, like this. Or you can actually set them up like this as well. And you can do it with one woofer if you wanted to, one set of woofers. So you can make this one speaker, or you could add the two. There's also ways to power these where you can power it passively or actively, and we'll denote that in the instructions. But if you look at the back of this, the way this works, if you were going to power it actively, meaning you had a receiver or a preamplifier, in this case you'd probably have a preamplifier, you would run your center channel output, you would use a Y adapter twice to get 3 outputs. And then you would use 3 separate channels of your amplifier coming off of one output or one channel of your preamplifier. So you'd split it 3 ways. And then out of your amplifier, you'd have one channel go to the mid-tweeter, one channel go to the woofer, and one channel go to the other woofer. And that would be called an actively powered setup. And then there's a switch on here that says, am I going to run one woofer, 2 woofers, or bypass? Meaning that if I do it in bypass, then I could wire it passively, meaning I have one output come out of my preamp, go into my amp, or one channel, the center channel output from my receiver. So if I have a receiver, one channel goes to here, and then I simply wire a passive configuration where I'm bridging, or let's just call it daisy chaining. Would make more sense for some of you, where I'm just daisy chaining off of one channel and making this one big speaker externally with some wiring. And so the cool thing about this stuff is you're getting true LCR, true home theater, like if you're building a theater and you want to do some in-wall speakers, this is what I would frickin' do in a heartbeat. Now, the cost of these is $1,000 for the MT, and you would technically need, 3 of these, and it's $700 for the woofer. So technically, one speaker is $2,400, so you'd be $7,500 for a trio of these, and then you'd probably do some dipoles. You'd do like 4 dipoles for your 7-channel. Maybe you do 8 dipoles if you're going to do Dolby Atmos or something like that. So you'd have a $10,000, $12,000 setup of speakers, which in the speaker world is a lot, but not insane. So I thought these were really cool, and then it got really confusing because I got these grills. I just did what I always do. I just bought one of everything in a catalog, and then that'll help me decide what I want. So you have these grills that you have. Because this doesn't come with a grill, because you have all these configurations. So if you're going to do a woofer, and actually the way this works is this piece comes off. So they send these pieces that I'm not going to break it here on the camera, but this little trim piece comes off, and then these little things that snaps together. So if you're doing a woofer and a mid-tweet, you would use the GR1, which means one woofer grill, and it's magnetized, so it magnetically connects If you were doing mid-tweet woofer woofer, then they make a GR2, which we can get $100 for that, for the grill. And then if you're gonna do a staggered setup where I have it, I have a stud in the middle here and a stud here, and I have, I'm doing like 16-inch on center setups. They have a custom grill, which can be cut to whatever size you need. And this one's $200. So you have the option for different grills for the LCR. I don't think we're gonna do a lot of LCR stuff in your garage, but if you do wanna set it up, and we do have the space to fit, this will fit in 2x4 construction without insulation. So if we set it up early, or if you just need some help with your home theater, I can help you with that too. But the LCR stuff I thought was really cool, and it kind of excited me just to see. I mean, look at this freaking thing, it's sick. In-wall speakers don't look like this, generally, with the quality crossover and components. And then if you wanted to, you could actually build backer boxes for these, like build a box inside of the wall to keep the sound inside that room rather than the next room. So we're never going to choose these in-ceiling, in-wall, custom installation things unless we just wanted it to disappear. I'm always going to choose a box. I'm always going to choose an external speaker over a in-wall speaker. But sometimes you just can't fit. Or, in a garage, in-ceiling works really well because then I can get the sound dispersed throughout if I'm not so worried about critical imaging and two-channel listening. But I think these things need to be available to us so that we can build out the design company that I'm working on building. And I just think they're freaking cool. So I want to have them. I want to have them available. And I know that we can keep providing value to people. We'll be sharing some install videos and things like that on these speakers. They are really cool. When I saw them, I took the risk to buy how many thousands of dollars I spent to buy these things just to touch them and to put a couple in my house, and we'll put a couple next door in the new garage we're designing. But I just wanted to see them, feel them, listen to them, have them available to me. Obviously, it's not so simple. These don't work very well just sitting on a table plugged in. They need to be installed in a wall or in a ceiling. They need that baffle. They need that in order to sound decent. But yeah, I think it's great. We're going to have these available in the store. We'll keep up with pricing or whatever Dynaudio's pricing. They set the price. We just sell it for what they set it at. And we'll be shipping these all over the darn country, I would guess. And a lot of times Kyle and his team will be using them in their different designs, and we'll have an audio. I'm working on getting preamps and amps and control systems and stuff like that in order to be able to provide you solutions. So the goal of this, at the end of the day, some of you know what you want, most of you don't. I'm going to figure out, and we're going to build out systems to make suggestions. This is the receiver. This is the Bluetooth thing you need. This is the AirPlay thing you need. This is how it needs to be configured. We'll drop wiring diagrams. We're going to have that all on obsessedgarage.com. First, I had to pick the speakers. We're also working on building out a slightly lower end line as well, something that doesn't cost quite as much as this. But in the ultimate situation, these are the speakers that I have in my house, in my garage, and what I want for my setup. So I would suggest you do the same. So thanks for watching. Any support you can give, appreciate it. Buy it from us. We'll ship it out. And always email us if you have questions. support@obsessedgarage.com, matt@obsessedgarage.com, and we'll help you figure out what to do in audio in your garage, or I guess in your house too. Thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more crazy. This stuff is freaking sick. You want it. See you soon. All right, so I know this isn't ideal, but I don't really want to cut a hole in my wall to show you how this works. And these are quite a bit different on how the hole is the same, but they're quite a bit different on how they mount. So I wanted to show you that. And so they send you the little template, 8¼ inch template. And this is some like hyper exterior drywall that I just pull out of the dumpster. So sorry for this is going to be a little bit different, but the method is the same. You could use, I generally use a drywall knife. So imagine this is on the ceiling and you're cutting it like so. I ordered a bunch of router blades, which would make this even easier, but we're just going to use a jigsaw, and we're going to make a hole, and I'm going to show you how this mounts. I need to come over a little bit. Let me just just need to make a starter hole. I'm gonna try to cut this left-handed here. All right, making a giant mess in my garage for the people. So, you know, we're gonna find out how exact this needs to be. I cut it a little bit on the big side just to save myself the trouble of recutting, but we're gonna find out if you should cut on the line or in the line. So these Studio series have a rather unique mounting method in that they have this lock, and you have a detached bracket. So again, pretend this is on the ceiling, we're looking up, we cut the hole, speaker wire would come in, but the nice thing about this is I get to mount my bracket first, which is different than most speakers. Most speakers, I'll show you in the P series how it goes. And so I put this in place, and then I'm going to turn. This is how it would sit on the, you know, if you're looking at the ceiling, and then you just reach inside and I clamp down the speaker, and then it's solid. So even if you did overcut the hole a little bit like I just did, so I think cut on the inside of the line and work from there if you're going to make a permanent install. You don't want this vibrating around. And then you take your speaker, which the tweeter pivots, so you can adjust depending on where your listening position is and what the speaker's being used for. And then I take and I drop my speaker down into the enclosure. Now what you need to do, you need to make sure you push so it snaps in place, so it doesn't fall on your face. I learned this lesson. So listen, it has to click in place, otherwise it'll drop on your face. And now our speaker is installed. So let's show it from the opposite view, like so. And so notice you're doing this by hand. And so if you were reaching up in the attic, you'd be holding the thing in place, and you'd reach up through, and then you would clamp down. Or unless you were physically in the attic, that's how it looks. So you can see a Studio Series speaker is not going to do so well if you don't have some, you have open attic. So if you have a 2x4 or even 2x6 construction, I don't even 2x8. I don't even think that's going to work. Let's see. That's 5.5, 5.25. So it'd be close in 2x6 construction. And I take my speaker, and it comes up into the hole like so. I definitely cut that hole way too big. So don't go on the outside of your hole. You only get one shot at that. So that's what your speaker looks like up in the attic. So let's do a P-Series square or wall mount, and then you'll get the gist. So all of the Studio Series wall mount and ceiling mount will mount the same, with a detached, including the LCR, with a detached trim ring, or I don't know what would you call this, Bryce? A receiver basket, whatever. It's the part of the speaker that goes in the frickin' ceiling. Mounting bracket, there you go, I like that. Oh, and then let's just show you the grill. And then the grill is magnetic. So the grill then snaps in place and makes it look flush. These are paintable. They give you a little cover so you could paint. You could paint over it if you wanted to. I've never actually seen anybody paint these things, so it's always talk about paintable, but if I were painting, I'd probably spray paint it. Maybe that's a bad idea. So now this is the P4W80. So, would normally mount it this way. If it was, let's just pretend that our wall is, that this is up and down, just for our application here. All right, so these mount a little differently, a little more traditionally. Man, they really make that hole big. Something's not right there, huh? What the heck? So cut way inside the line, because that's still too big. And then this, you're gonna wanna be careful. Oh no, this is stupid. Should have cut this outside. So obviously you'd want to be careful with, especially if you're on the ceiling or on the wall, you'd want to make sure that you don't end up jabbing your darn speaker with your screw gun. So that's how this mounts. You would tighten all 6 screws down. Now this P-series can fit in traditional 2x4 construction. So it looks like so. Yeah, that hole, you want to measure because that hole is too freaking big.
At least like
it would work, but it's too big. You want to cut it, pressure fit it if you can. So that's how you mount it. All the speakers are the same. All the P-series are similar. All of the S-series are similar. Now I'm going to clean up.